So 22 years ago, I sat on a coalition in which our attorneys drafted the VFD provision in the Animal Drug Availability Act. How many of you were in that coalition? Yeah. Is Bernadette Dunham in here? She was in it in AVMA. Tom Berggren, Beth Lautner. I'm feeling very old.
You don't look it, though.
Thank you. 2 years from retirement. By then, if the agency doesn't kill me, I'll be okay. So, stewardship for our industry is basically compliance. Feed is not a commodity anymore, it's a service. What are your goals? And this fine gentleman put it in perspective very, very well. I grew up in a city in Memphis, behind Graceland, with cotton growing down the street, so I'm not an agriculture kid. But I taught vocational agriculture on the other side of the world for 2 years and came back and got a graduate degree in poultry science, and actually did regulatory work for 7 years for the state of Texas before I escaped. The issues with our industry are manifold, and they're pretty depressing. They're very costly. The agency, in publishing the final rule, did a very, very poor cost assessment because they weren't looking ahead to January 1. And what huge cost we have to cover to make this system work. I've got one company telling me they've got 38,000 labels they have to change. And they're very concerned that what they're getting from the drug sponsors matches what publishes in the regulation on December 15th. With this magnitude of changes, there are going to be mistakes. And I did a survey of the majors this morning, and they're all over the ballpark of whether they're going to be ready on January 1. Nevertheless, we'll do the best job of compliance we can, and that's our stewardship role. So on top of this, we have this monstrous act that came and has started to be implemented called the Food Safety Modernization Act. And that's about $1 billion on top of this several $100 million to change. And that's why I do believe the agency's trying to kill me purposely. I realized this month we made a serious mistake by not including water in the VFD. And the reason is, one of our members from Wisconsin, our members sell a lot of water-soluble products in their operations, in their farm stores, whatever. And the state of Wisconsin has indicated that the pharmacy board will require a pharmacist in the feed mill to dispense water prescription products. And what does that mean for people like Jay? They will not sell it. They can't sell it. It's too cost prohibitive. They're not going to put a pharmacist in a 6-foot counter in a feed mill farm store. We manufacture, last year, 183 million tons of feed. Did you know that? We're the largest because China says they're the largest and they can't count. I don't know where they get their
Just
numbers.
Trust them.
Yeah, trust them, right. We used to say that 50% of that product was medicated. We can't say that anymore because 52% of the feed is the poultry industry, and so many of those large companies have taken these products out. Our members, our 600 corporate members, of which 200 are feed manufacturers, manufacture 75% of that 183 million tons. And that's up 10 million tons over last year, basically because of the restocking of the cattle industry, which is a good growth. One of the biggest issues is timely label changes. We're looking for Kerry's company and other drug sponsors to turn those products around and get us the label changes that need to be made in a timely manner. So if you're sitting there as a vice president of marketing in a commercial side, and you're trying to determine, what do my products look like come January 1? It's an empty crystal ball because you don't know what veterinarians are going to basically write a VFD for. And please don't use the word prescribe or a script. It is different. As a matter of fact, intentionally, this federal law exempts from state pharmacy boards. It says this VFD is not a prescription under state or federal law. And that's where we got to where we are. The most common question I get from our members and from out in the countryside is, why are they doing this? We were promised by agency officials that they would never retroactively make a product VFD at the time. Never. So what's happened since then? The most common phrase I hear from the agency is, times change. Congress has tried on numerous occasions to take these drugs out of our use, and this is more, the agency says, a protective thing that if we don't do this, we're likely to use the use of these drugs. It's a very difficult and expensive proposition, but we're going to make it work. That's what we do. I have never seen a warning letter in the 20 years written to a veterinarian or a feed mill or a producer on VFD. I have not seen a drug residue from feed in 2 decades. It's really an amazing industry. We do what we're told. Let me talk about the types of feed. The statute was really clear, and it sometimes comes back to bite us, that these are medicated feeds. So under the rules, a type B or a type C is a medicated feed, and a type A premix is a medicated article. So in essence, a producer can buy a medicated article, the premix, without a VFD. A little unusual. However, then they're subject to the current good manufacturing practices for medicated feed. We have a problem right now with premixes. I heard Dr. Flynn yesterday mention some things about use up these products. Is everyone aware that premixes have a 1 to 3 year expiration date? Now, our companies are not stocking up on it. His companies are not having fire sales. We believe that they're making a diligent effort to move down to these products. But on January 1, there will be in producers' bins products that were made prior to that were legal. And the agency has been saying they need to have a VFD. And I find that to be El Toro poo-poo. Just seriously, El Toro poo-poo.
I didn't know you knew Spanish, Richard.
I don't know how we're going to work through that, but veterinarians need to be up at midnight writing VFDs. And some of those will not actually work for the product that's out there with the growth promotion. So there's going to have to be some regulatory discretion. Our biggest issue is we did a preliminary survey and 24 companies responded saying they currently have $5.5 million of product. And we extrapolate that out to a large, and we've got hundreds of millions of dollars of products sitting in our inventory that we're going to expect to use. And we're going to make a request to the agency to exhaust the supply, knowing that those products, even though they have growth promotion claims on them, are technically illegal. We want to be able to use them with VFDs as the law requires. Who wants to throw away a $200 or $300 bag of premix? And we don't expect the drug sponsors to take those back. One of the other issues is the 2-year monstrous record-keeping requirement in which you can't keep electronic records for a number of reasons. It's more complicated than that, and I don't want to get into it. We and another organization filed a petition with the agency earlier this year to revoke the Part 11 requirement for VFD forms. They did it for the Food Safety Modernization Act and did not propose it, but published it in the final rule, and no one made any comments. Hooray! We don't have to keep a billion pieces of paperwork. So in order to get around the Part 11 electronic records and signatures, if you can't validate your system to FDA, which is very costly, then you need to say, I'm going to keep paper. And in every file cabinet in feed mills in America, there is the CGMP filing cabinet for FDA. I was describing this to a reporter who called it just nuts. Well, that's a kind word compared to but we're hoping, and when this election is over, I can't not be a lobbyist and say election. It's an 800-pound gorilla in the room. We're going to have an onslaught of letters from the Hill telling them they need to do this as a directed final rule with no comments and make it happen pretty quickly. I do want to praise Dr. Flynn and his staff. They've been really wonderful in spite of the rigorous lawyer review process that goes on there for guidance documents. If you write him a question, he will send you an answer with a god-awful disclaimer at the bottom that looks like he doesn't know what he's doing. When in fact, I know if they issued it as a guidance, he would have written it and it would have gotten approval, but it would have taken 6 months. And we're not getting things out of that agency in a hurry right now because of the mandated stuff that rolls around with the Food Safety Modernization Act. So we met with both of the candidates' ag people, if you want to call them ag people, because there's really not agriculture being discussed in this election, which I think is very serious. As my crystal ball rolled off and broke and fell on the floor, which doesn't make any difference, because on November 9th, we will have a better understanding of where this rule and its enforcement and the Food Safety Modernization Act and the enforcement go, because there's two very different approaches to enforcement in these candidates. So I'll leave you with a parting thought: vote early and often, which is what one of the campaign co-chairs told our executive committee, and I'll let you guess who that might be. Thank you.